Hey guys, what's up? This is the Bushido Podcast Episode 6, and today I just wanted to give a quick update, kind of basically how the podcast journey has been, the progress so far. I think these progress videos, even though they're kind of like weird in the moment or not weird in the moment, but just like, oh yeah, it's normal, now is now, and that's how it is. But just like anything, when you look back in time, you can think back and be like, oh yeah, I was still living there or doing this. It's the same thing with my jiu-jitsu. I have videos from when I was a white belt and beginning as a blue belt, and it's cool to look back and see how much progress you've made in sometimes can be a relatively short amount of time, sometimes a bit longer, but either way, whether I look back on this in a year or 5 years or 10 years, I think it'll be cool just to log the journey. My idea is maybe to do these like once a month, and I think that would be a cool, just to see even like the video quality, the audio quality, things I was talking about versus where it'll be in the future. So that's kind of the idea around these update videos. So as of right now, it's been about 2 weeks. I think I released the first video on May 8th of 2023. So it's been about 2 weeks. And thus far, I'm pretty pleased. I really came in not with any crazy expectations. I think anyone that watched like my first video, isn't about trying to, have 1 million impressions or anything like that super quickly. It's just about the journey. And so it's been a challenge, but in a really good way. It's pushed me to learn new software, and something that's really cool is to just get like a workflow down. So basically on the most recent episode I did, it was cool to do the podcast. Then obviously you have the podcast, but then it's like, okay, now I need to take this podcast, upload it to like 3 different sites, and then find a clip, pull that off, transfer it over, put captions on it. And so in the beginning, it's a bit of a struggle and can be not painful, but it's a struggle to like learn that process. But it was really rewarding on this last one to go through the process so quickly. It felt like I was able to shoot it and in the same day get it uploaded, pull a clip, put subtitles on, and get that all pushed out within probably a couple hours. And so that felt really rewarding. Like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of it, starting to see, oh, I had this issue before, here's a little workaround. So that was pretty rewarding. And another thing I noticed is I think just like anything, the longer you're in it, it loses its novelty. And I think with that, in a good way, I'm already entering into that phase of the grind where you do something like 1 or 2 times and there's that initial excitement, but also like nerves and you're scared, but then you do it and you realize like, oh shit, there's nothing, it's not rocket science. Obviously, like any art, can go like pretty deep, but you realize that it's just not a grind in a bad way, but it's just about putting in the work and getting it done. That is my next bullet I put down, is you just see how people respond to content, and you need to be putting out content, obviously not like garbage, because people aren't going to respond to that, but just trying to find that sweet spot that works for you. I was thinking, it kind of exists on a spectrum. If you're a content creator, on one hand, you could do these people that it's almost like a live stream of their life. They're basically updating, tweeting, streaming, everything. And I'm not sure, I would theorize that later, whenever the technology develops such a way where we have wearable glasses, I'm sure there will be celebrities that they just stream everything, because it's just like those bullshit tabloids that are like updating you on so-and-so, whoever's whatever in their life, and you're like, why do people even care about that? But there's people that care about that. So I'm sure in the foreseeable future, there's going to be people just streaming their entire lives, and there's going to be people that consume that. But you can look at that as one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum, I think you have something like the Huberman Lab podcast with Andrew Huberman. I would highly recommend checking him out if you don't know him. Really great content, but his, at least from what I understand, it's like once a week, really good quality content, well researched, the production value is solid, and that's kind of like your other end where they're putting out content once a week and it's just like premium content, or maybe even it could be less than that, who knows, maybe someone puts out something once a month and it's like this really beautifully made video or trailer, who knows. I'm just trying to illustrate the idea of, as a content creator, we're all going to fall on some end of the spectrum, and so I'm kind of seeing like, okay, what sort of time commitment can I do? What is going to work for me? Because I think in any creative endeavor, when part of it is about producing content in whatever artist form you're doing, but it's not just like you can go and dig a hole and the hole is dug. It requires more. It takes me a few days to where I'm thinking like, oh, that's a good point to make, and then da 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 da, and then eventually I think like, okay, today I think I have enough content where I can put together a decent video that would provide some value to the people that watch. Okay, what do I have down next? Well, this was a really cool thing and something I hadn't really taken into account before I started, at least consciously, maybe like subconsciously. I was looking for a creative outlet, but now that I'm starting to do it, and really, for anyone that follows the Instagram with the Bushido podcast, there was a video I released, I think like last week, and I used all AI tools to make it, so that was really cool. I used ChatGPT to write the script, and then I went to 11 Labs, cloned my voice, had it read it off, and then I used Midjourney to generate some images, and then I also used another website, I forget, but it basically takes the still images and kind of gives them a little bit of motion, which I thought was interesting. But it's cool just to have a creative outlet to where I can put something that I produce up. That minute video, it's not, anything that's going to win awards, but as with the podcast and the importance that I place on the journey, it's the same thing of like, okay, well, if I want to do something, how do I go about doing it? And I'm very much a proponent of learning by doing. And so that for me, it was like just a little challenge, like, okay, sit down, make a 1-minute video using AI as much as possible. And that was cool. So that was a really good experience. Also just learning some videography. I have some experience with photography when I was in my younger 20s and traveling around more, and I really enjoyed that. But I think videography, I don't know what I would say. It's just a little more, maybe a little more tangible, because nowadays a photo, it's just so easy to edit those and manipulate those that when you see a photo, you can't really be sure. Especially with AI now, it's like, what are you even looking at? How much has it been edited? Is it photoshopped? Was this even a real place? Now with AI, like, you don't even know. Whereas with videography, even though definitely should take into account that like AI and people can like clone themselves, I still think that's such a new technology that for the most part, or maybe I won't say for the most part, but more so than with photography at least, with videography, it's what you see is what you get. For those of you that are viewing, you can be probably reassured that I'm a real person and I'm coming up with these ideas and have to express them. So videography, back when I was in photography, always seemed a bit intimidating to me. So it's good for me to be dipping my toes in that and kind of getting into it from the podcast end, which I think is relatively controlled. I don't need to be worried about like angles and lighting, and well, I will need to worry about lighting, but I don't know. It's a good way to be getting into a huge field that can be kind of intimidating, is how I would say it. And also on the point about it being a creative outlet is that it's my podcast, so it's cool. I can say I want to learn about whatever thing it is. Then I can set myself the goal of like, okay, well, let's, how about I give a presentation on it? Presentation, whatever form that takes. But that is like, it's like an extra motivator, because we all want to learn something. But if you are learning something, knowing that you have to give some sort of presentation on it, just kind of gives you like that extra fire under your ass, or like a little extra oomph of, okay, let's see, can I learn this well enough to teach it? Which is often, I think, is a standard measurement of people. How well do you know something? There's knowing something to the degree of understanding it, and then there's understanding something to the degree of really comprehending it and integrating it to the degree that you can then teach it to someone else. Okay, so wrap it up here. The podcast, it's really something that I'm just going to let it evolve with time. Try not to force it too much. My goal, I think, basically what I said in the first episode would be 2 episodes per week. And so let's just say 50 weeks out of the year, 50 out of 52, I'm hitting that. Then that would be 100 episodes per year. To me, that doesn't seem too much of a stretch. Obviously, I'm not a full-time podcaster, and I don't even know that would even be necessarily a goal of mine. But I think that 2 episodes per week, it's doable, it's reachable. I'm able to juggle the podcast while doing all my other commitments. And so I really want to try to stick to that as much as possible. And as time goes on, I'll learn and discover my own niche and style. So something my mom said that really stuck with me, she was working in like cosmetic sales for a short time, and I know someone had told her that people come into sales for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I really like that. It's, I think, also something along the lines of that in the Bible. I forget what verse it is, but it basically talks about how there's like a season for everything in life. And so I'm not even saying that this podcast has to be something that, it's make or break for my success. But I think at least for this season right now in my life, it is something that is pushing me to learn and try new things. And it's a little bit scary to put myself out there. But I think if it wasn't a challenge, there wouldn't be a point to it. I wouldn't be growing because it's like, oh, I can do all this. And then another point in letting the podcast evolve is just like any art, martial arts as well, jiu-jitsu specifically. You know me, always with the jiu-jitsu analogies. In jiu-jitsu, you need a lot of time and practice to really discover your own style and what works best for you and your personality, your body type. And so even though I think that's for podcasts that start off with, this is a podcast about whatever X thing and they have an expertise in that, that's awesome. I think that's great. But I don't think I'm in that boat. And so I really just want to let it evolve with time. Because in jiu-jitsu, you wouldn't start playing jiu-jitsu and then say like, oh, I'm just a leg lock guy, or oh, I'm a top pressure guy, or I'm really focused on like body locks. That's stuff that I think is in your beginning, you really should be experimenting in the beginning of your whatever journey it is. But for this example, like your martial arts or jiu-jitsu journey, the beginning is a lot about experimentation and trying new things, and then seeing what kind of naturally expresses itself out of that. And so I would really like to implement kind of the same strategy and just make content, put myself out there, learn and improve the things that I see, and then new avenues will open up as time goes on. But yeah, just let it flow, let it evolve, and I think at least for me, that's going to be the best. I guess going on that point, look at Joe Rogan. I mean, he's the most successful podcaster from what I understand. I mean, he literally has more views than most mainstream media outlets. And I don't think he really set out with an idea of mind of, oh, I'm going to make a podcast about this. And then he just would have his friends on, comedians, martial arts guys, and then it grew into be something more. So I kind of want to implement the same strategy. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'm really focused on the long-term time horizon. The thing that sticks with me, it's like 8 years to build a brand. So the minimum time horizon I would want to have would be like end of the decade. Okay, so let's give this a good 5, 6, 7 years and see where it goes. And I think by that time, my life circumstances will have changed so much, and we're humans. We should be, if you're not adapting to new information, then you're going to get left behind. That's basically the history of evolution. So yeah, stay tuned, guys. Anyone who's watching, I really appreciate your time. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you along on this journey. I'm going to stick my Bitcoin address in the show notes on YouTube and Rumble. So if you are familiar with Bitcoin and wanted to send some sats over, that would be sick. But really, it's just going to be a process of, maybe I will monetize the podcast in some way at some point. But for now, it'll basically just be like Bitcoin address. If anyone knows how to do that, they'll know how easy it is. And if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, I will definitely be doing a podcast probably like this, presentation style, because that is something that I'm also very passionate about, and I think there's a real dearth of quality information out there on Bitcoin. Not that it can't be found, but I want to do my part to further that movement. So, guys, thanks a lot. That's the Bushido Podcast, episode 6, and I'll try to get another podcast with a guest release later this week. Right on.